Welcome back. Welcome in. This is Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com. It's a Paramount podcast. I'm Mike Casazza. That is Chris Anderson. Saturday night in Morgantown, West Virginia. Still perfect against FCS opponents. This one, I guess that's why we're here, Chris. Deceiving 49-14 win. You figure a lot of offense, 7 touchdowns on 9 possessions. Really only stopped once on a punt. It was a fumble that they were on their way to scoring there. And yet, a lot of people will talk about the other side of the ball for negative reasons, wherein the game really does swing when that same side of the ball keeps Albany out of the end zone. And the score remains 28-14, and West Virginia rolls the rest of the way in the second half. Just another day at the office for West Virginia's defense, I guess. And probably all in all, this is, but also isn't what you sign up for when you play an FCS team, huh?
Yeah, I mean it seemed to switch just like that. It was 21-0. West Virginia's offense didn't seem to have any issues at all moving up and down the field. First drive was a little more methodical, which is fine. I mean, if you want a team that wasn't as explosive, but 21-0, they're stopping them, they're moving, and then they get stopped. And then they give up a score. And then they fumble. And then they give up another score. And all of a sudden you're looking and go, oh, wait, it's 21-14 with fewer than 2 minutes to go in the first half. And Albany gets the ball to start the second half. Yikes. So I think that was a big touchdown by West Virginia right before the half. And like you said, then getting a goal line stand after that, and then kind of going from there and just putting it away. So good and bad to take from this. Again, the first stat that stands out to me is all those passing yards that West Virginia gave up, the most by an FCS opponent against West Virginia in school history. Um, I believe there's only been twice where an FCS opponent had gone over 250 yards passing. And one of those was 2015 Liberty when Flames were, I think, 2 years. They'd already announced that they were moving up to FBS. So they were FCS in name only, basically. And they got 280 yards. Tonight, 306 for the Great Danes. Um, and that was the talk of the post game, right? With the coaches, with Neil Brown. I heard Jordan Leslie hop on for a couple minutes with the post game radio, and he talked about it too.
Hey, let's stop
So,
there for a second. What the hell is that?
so,
We don't get to talk to
so
the coordinator after a game, but he does the radio or
yeah, it
oof.
was the post game radio with Caridi and Wallace, and it just we're going into the locker room for just a quick minute, and there's Jordan Leslie, and that's where I guess we can get into this too. All of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, how'd you get stitched up?" And I'm sitting here like, "Wait, stitched up? What? What happened?" And they relayed the story, and I kind of was like, "Yeah, I remember seeing some staffer getting laid out there in the second quarter, and that person was Jordan Leslie, and got stitched up. Had to said he busted his eye socket open, like around his eye socket. I haven't seen it. It wasn't visual. It was radio. Said he had to get stitches at halftime. Was bleeding a lot, so had to hand off for play calling duties on defense for the remainder of the first half. Um, Quite a lot going on there that I don't think I was aware of as it was happening.
Yeah, I saw that happen. I knew somebody got hit, and I had my binoculars and I was peeking at just the scenes. You could tell there was some concern. I was pretty sure it was him. I didn't. I just figured like leg or hip or knee or something like that, and then he was up walking around, so I didn't think much of it. But like I just kind of like jokingly asked in the press conference, I was like, can we get an update on Jordan Leslie, like injury report? Because we got a pretty significant injury report about somebody else we can get into. And like Neil wasn't like in a cheery mood about that. And it turns out like it was pretty serious. And Sean Martin said he thought that Leslie was gonna have to go to the hospital at halftime because it looked that bad. So yeah, Jordan, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was that big of a I didn't know it was so serious. I just thought it'd get rolled up, and I figured like knee, ankle, or whatever, and it'd be like a funny question at the end of a press conference. But everything was pretty serious there too. And I mean, good to hear that he can make the radio appearance after the game. That's good. Um, but yeah, I guess he'll be on the sideline in practice, and then probably have a lot to work on here. I don't know where to begin on this, Chris. This again doesn't feel like an FCS game.
Yeah.
This was I think a few probably fewer than 60 plays. They get some superlatives out of it, good yardage for Garrett Green, the two running backs over 100 yards. But like, man, this is when you want to have like Jalen Anderson get you 80 yards and Nico Marchio threw 2 touchdown passes and get a lot of guys second, third quarter action. Chris, people were talking about, man, how much a Ryder Burton play? not even close because this game was close for a while too. This just feels weird, and I don't know that it has anything to do with last week or next week or just West Virginia in general in 24. We'll tell sometime soon about this, which kind of leads me to while we're here in the extension of the conversation we had on Thursday, which was FCS game, and you usually have all these exploits, offensive and defensive players that you haven't heard of, players you expected to see something out of, and you got it, and you have takeaways. What can you expect from here on out? What conclusions can you draw? Chris, I'm drawing conclusions in pencil on this one, just because I'm not sure who or what I learned about here in a negative or positive way that I would project going forward. Maybe on offense, maybe on defense. Just seems like a lot of TBD out of this one right now.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that we did on Thursday was we went back and looked at the previous FCS games and the things that stood out from those games and those games alone that maybe were not true or were only kind of true beforehand. I got a couple here. And again, I think it'll be a fun exercise for us to kind of debate, discuss whether we think any of these things are, they can be, again, replicated, they can last for, FBS opponents. Because I wrote down, I think I got four. I got three and then three and a half, I guess, here. So you have a couple that you
I have a couple, yeah.
doodled down. Okay. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Um, I just want to start with like the cat in the bag here. Secondary's got to get fixed.
Yeah.
I know that's not dramatic. It's not why people tuned in, right? Like they know the problem, they want the resolution. I don't have it. Just has to be better than that, which that's either personnel or play calls. And it might be like in front of the defensive backfield too that's different. I had to find better ways to pressure the passer and not give a quarterback so much time and comfort. They played the ball in the air extremely poorly tonight. And those are players that they count on to be good. It wasn't like they had their second and third string in. It does read like from Jordan Leslie's post game explanation to the radio, they played very simple. And this is similar to last year, Chris, and they changed some things in between Penn State and Pitt and didn't really tell anybody or didn't show it because they were so bad in that first game, chasing people and playing off the ball. Maybe something of that was afoot this time. They're working in practice in between game one and game two for week three and beyond. And yeah, if you play cover three and you're soft like that, you can split the middle and hit the rails and things like that. And a lot of Albany stuff was just posting it in the middle and getting open and just throwing between the two or three layers. That's fine. But there were some plays up the sideline where the ball's in the air and like someone's got to do something. And they're going to see better receivers soon. Like Keontae Mumpfield's a good player who had 2 touchdowns today and gave Cincinnati some trouble. Um, they're going to see good receivers throughout the Big 12. And if they play like that, they're not going to win games. They're not. So yeah, they'll be more complex. They'll probably have different coverages, and maybe they'll be better. Maybe they won't, Chris. Maybe they can't handle different coverages and more complex defensive calls, and maybe the ball's in the air or you're chasing a guy in a route and you're just not good enough at it. It can't continue like this because it's not going to be a good outcome for anybody involved. Again,
Yeah.
bold, I know, but I feel like it does have to be stated.
No, top of my list too. And I think it obviously has to be discussed. It's everything being asked about. It's everything the coaches are talking about. And you look at it and I don't know, you want to go ahead and make a ruling on this right now? Like, because I wrote down getting rid of a safeties coach and not replacing him might not have been a great idea. Was my big takeaway on that. I don't know if that has anything to do with, the back end of that defense being ready to handle, the fundamentals. I mean, Jordan Leslie just hammered fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals over and over and over again in his brief talk with the radio. Um, is this something that can truly get better? Because I understand what Jordan Leslie said about how, hey, we're not going to show you the changes we made because we're playing a team that we think we're so much better than that we don't need to. And they said that last year. And then they were so much better against Pitt. And I'm like, oh, genius. Yep. Not genius, but yeah, that makes sense. You hold it off. You did it against Pitt and it worked. In hindsight, it was terrible. Their quarterback was terrible. Their offense was terrible. So did they change that much? Did they improve that much? Statistically, a little bit, not much, a little bit. Can they improve this year? I don't know. I think this is going to be a year-long problem. I think this is one of the things that shows up in this FCS game, the annual FCS game, that ends up being real and lasts all year long.
Yeah, I'm watching Aubrey Burks. I don't want to get ensnared in the Rodney Gallagher trap, but I don't know what's good for the defense when you put him on the field and you take Aubrey Burks off the field. I don't know how that makes your 11 better. Like I'd have to sit down and look at that. And I saw that a couple times tonight, and I thought that's weird because that's definitely one of your best 11 guys. And if the idea was when he's not playing Spear, he's going to go back to Cat, and you're in between a Cat right now. Jaheim Joseph seems certainly like a better player than Tarnew. I get that. Is he better than Burks? I don't know. And is Burks like a guy that you can have out the field? Could he play safety? Can he play nickel? Can he cover people? Don't know. I'm not sure he's playing corner and making any of the plays the guys didn't play tonight, but there is certainly some confusion in like one of the touchdowns, the long one, where Wilson and Joseph took an underneath route and they left, I believe it was Hollis, one on one, and he's supposed to have safety help, and he realized the ball's in the air, and the corner goes, "Oh no." There's no one back there. Not that he releases him to him, but he knows he has a safety. So, the inside release is gone. But that's probably not going to happen with Burks back there. He's better. So I wonder if he's a solution somehow or another. Either he can still play Spear, but he could also move back to the defensive deep end at some point. Or is he just there all the time now and you make that Spear a corner? Maybe it is Joseph because he's played like that before. He's played the nickel before. But like the sum of your parts, how do you get the best 11 out there? I wonder how he factors into it. And that's something I think about tonight that maybe 2, 3 weeks from now, we're like, yeah, you remember what Mike said after the game? Uh, Idiot. Or he was right. One or the other. Probably no in between.
I like that you brought up that play. I think that's the exact play where I wrote down the, hey, maybe might need a safeties coach because I feel like the issue. I mean, I know they're pointing out fundamentals, and they're right. Like they're doing the defensive backs as a whole, safeties, corners, are doing a poor job of playing the ball in the air, whether it's not
Mm,
finding the ball, whether it's mistiming jumps, whatever. It's all of the above, and it's a lot of different players. But it also sure seems like these opposing teams, Penn State, okay, yeah, they're talented. They got a great offensive coordinator. In Albany, like they're scheming their way, or I don't even know if it's scheming their way, but they're ending up with a lot of one-on-one situations deep. And I feel like that's abnormal. Like that's not normal to have that many one-on-one situations deep against West Virginia's defense. And I think that's a bad sign. And I'm glad I
agree.
think that was the exact play where I wrote that down, like, oh, might need a safeties coach because
Mm,
I think there should be a safety back there.
mm.
So, all right, you ready
Your
for
turn. Go
my
for it.
pick? TJ Jackson is a top two defensive lineman on this team at worst.
Yeah, let's get into this right now. Do you start him now?
I mean, I think
Because
you have to, obviously, with Edward Vesteranen out, right? Is that what in his spot? Is that what you're talking about?
I mean, you put him at end and Martin at tackle. I mean, it looks like Jackson could play anywhere, but when you do that, do you lose your best sub in the defensive line? So now, like, your first line is going to be weaker without Pasternak. All due respect to TJ Jackson, but when you put him up there, you're probably not going to be the same. He's just not suited for that position. He doesn't bring you the same stuff that Pasternak does there. And then you make your second line, which isn't especially strong or deep right now, weaker too. I don't know about that. I wonder if they don't put a Sonny Redwood there. We'll see. That's a great question right now. I don't know, but like who's better than him up front, Chris? I don't know anybody is right now. Top two, yeah. Top one, maybe.
I feel like he's bringing a lot of energy. He certainly did early in the game. The tackles, sack, tackle for loss, and again, it was in game with some, in game, mid game adjustments against an FCS opponent, and they did go with Redwood, to start the second half. And so I don't know if that's a sign of what's to come, or if they might switch over to Jackson, or like you said, slide Martin over, put Jackson in Martin's spot. We'll see. Um, is this a snake draft? Do I get to go twice?
You want to? Sure.
Is red zone success real?
I think they have good
Does
ideas down there. I do.
okay
I
because
watched it in a bunch and I thought that was good. This is good. They should have had probably more success last week than they did. If they just get the 4th and 1, then that drive continues there. I know that they were 0 for on a couple of those red zone drives that count, but like they're counting the field goal snap as a red zone drive, as a red zone. Like that's you only got like one snap in the red zone. That's kind of misleading there. I'm not being Neil Brown and couching all the statistics, but that is true. Like two of those red zone possessions, they got one snap in the red zone. They had to kick field goals from like I forget, 34, 36 yards. So, um, I think that they have good ideas and it's going to have to work better, but it looked better tonight too. They had good stuff. They went to formations. They used personnel. They had their skyscrapers out there. They had their tight ends out there. They ran the ball inside. I think they have good stuff there. So is it real? I think we're going to look back and say, you know what, they were better in the red zone this year, and not the 5 for 5 of 5 touchdowns doesn't have a lot to do with that. I think you'd be encouraged by what you saw tonight. I think that was probably the most important thing. Again, 7 touchdown drives. They got in the red zone on 5 of them. That's pretty good. And that's what they do. They possess the ball. Like they are explosive at times, but they generally move the ball inside the 20. They had a ton of red zone possessions last year.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at because like last year, I remember when I was doing the pregame or preseason stuff, it was like, hey, they actually like their touchdown rate was below average, 72nd in the country, but it was just a numbers game. They got into the red zone, like you said, more often than other teams, and so it just kind of you score more, you get there more, you score more. Period. Um, but 60%. I'm wondering, 5 for 5, 5 touchdowns. That's an FCS opponent. You should be doing stuff like that against an FCS opponent. But I'm with you, I think this one might be true. I do think they might be better in the red zone for reasons you said. It looks better even last week against Penn State. A couple of those were like the plays that we talked about right after the game, where he threw to Cole Taylor, Garrett Green threw to Cole Taylor when you could see, I believe it was Traylon Ray that was open, and you called it out. So that's the play they've run 100 times in practice.
Yeah,
He should know, and it was schemed up properly. Play was there. So I'm with you. Between these two things, I think this might be replicable. Yeah, sure. Repeatable,
replicable. Hmm.
replicable moving
Yeah.
forward. You
Um,
got anything else?
I'm gonna I'm gonna say that in the end of the season, we're gonna agree that this is their best group of linebackers, and then that it's probably why they're going to be good against the run, if they're good against the run. So I'm
Mm.
leaving myself a lot of wiggle room there. I'm not sure their defensive line is engineered, especially without Vestarin and now for at least a couple weeks, it sounds like, for them to be great against the run by having a 3-man wall up front. I do think that Trotter, Carrico, Cutter, Lathan, those guys can be plus run defenders. And there were times tonight where Tyron Bradley looked like he was going to be a. I was like, man, if that guy stayed in the FCS, he'd be an All American and probably like a top 3 round draft pick because he was just running through and running around Albany guys. I just think that there's something there with those guys and the way they can put together lineups so they can be good against the run. So, yeah, this will be their best group of linebackers. I think even right now, that's hard to dispute, absent results. Do think that if this defense doesn't completely crater and every wheel falls off over the next 10 games, that it has a chance to be like a plus run defense. And what's that mean? I don't know. I'm not saying top 10 of the country, but like top 10% maybe. Um, could they find a way to maybe that would be top 10, wouldn't it? It'd be like top 13, like top 30, let's say. I think there's a chance they could be good against the run. Granted, that might be because everybody's passing the ball against them because the secondary is so sieve. I understand that too. Still counts. But I think that the linebackers would have a way to, fill gaps and get stops on their own and not have to give them help. They could help the secondary, by keeping a safety back or not having to cheat so much down to stop the run.
I'm actually going to amend this last one I have on the fly here because my question was going to be, or observation, and see if it was going to continue, was can Garrett Green pass, like for real pass,
Yeah.
all over the field? Because he had statistically a great night, a 17 to 23 for 236, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, passer rating of 203, highest since last year's FCS game against Duquesne, where he threw 4 touchdowns on 10 completions. Um, Still felt like he missed a couple, which then got me thinking, wait, are the wide receivers real? Especially after Neil Brown's comments in the post game, where he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the receivers are getting open and they beat man coverage and they beat man coverage. They won their one-on-one battles with Penn State. Again, paraphrasing Neil Brown. And the 17 to 23 for Garrett Green, they were wide open. Receivers were open all day. Again, FCS opponent, understand that. And out of those 6 incompletions, I would say like 3 or 4 of them, I remember thinking, "Ooh, Green missed that one." Like that was there. The receiver had gotten open. So I want to amend mine to, are the receivers real? Do we feel like maybe they are a group that can beat opposing teams one on one and make things easier for Green?
Yeah, I have more is more written down. So, so what I mean here is, um, there's this obsession as to who is the lead running back. Is it White? Is it Donaldson? I get that. That's fun. It does not matter to either one of them. Never mind their teammates. And then who is their alpha receiver? I don't even know who's in the conversation, Chris. Maybe that's not. Maybe they don't have a clear cut one. They have a nice compliment, and maybe they have a tight end who is probably better suited to not be blocking people on the line. His touchdown today came as the outside tight end in a bunch where he got a free release and just ran through and around some people. And then I'm thinking here, Clement had 4 catches, Ray had 3, Gallagher had 3, Fox had 3. Actually, did Fox even have 3? Maybe not. My point is that it was spread around. Listen, this is not a Kevin White offense. This is not, um, a lead back offense. This is not an offense that's going to find and hammer a mismatch like a tight end in the slot or an X who just keeps running by the corner. So the challenge here, and then this will be maybe the legacy of the offense and the coaching staff, can they make more out of more? Can they spread around? Can they get 2 running backs 12 to 15 carries? Maybe. Can they get 6 or 7 receivers 2 or 3 touches? Can they throw touchdowns to 3 different people? Chris, 7 people scored 7 touchdowns tonight. I don't know if they'll do that or not, but I think the best approach to this offense is to spread it around and not lean on somebody. I'm not sure that they have that dynamic playmaker who can be durable and do this. There are moments where White and Donaldson look great running the ball. If you stretch them out like that over 3 and 4 quarters, you probably shouldn't. And they don't have a guy who's going to just consistently move the chains as a receiver. So why even try that? Can they make it work? And then I bring this up because, like, what was most impressive, most important was that 99-yard, 14 play drive. And they did a little bit of everything, Chris. Like, when they ran the ball, they hammered inside with Donaldson and they ran outside zone with White. They had some draws for Green. They went tempo because they had Albany rolling a little bit backwards. And they went to different receivers. They did a little bit of everything. They kind of got in their bag right there. So never mind the personnel, Chris. They did more ideas, more plays, more formations. They messed with tempo. They did different types of runs. They did different types of passes. They moved the pocket, Chris. More is more, and I think this is something where if this offense does have a good thing going in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, it's because they lean into this. This idea that you shouldn't be a team that tries to be good at 8 or 9 things when you only have business being good at 3 or 4. Maybe that's not quite true. Maybe West Virginia's advantage is the fact that it has the potential to be good at 6 or 7, not very good. 6 or 7 different things as opposed to 3 or 4. And you can kind of raise that bar. I just think that more is more, which sounds obvious, but I think they can do more by just being versatile and spread out and just distributing the ball in different ways to different parts of the field with different people in different manners. When they got going tonight, that's kind of what I realized. It wasn't like Penn State where you're thinking, well, they're really trying to do something here. And then the criticism at the end of the game was like, what are they doing? They were very simple, very vanilla, it seemed. And we found out why later. Didn't see that tonight. And I don't know if that was a coincidence or if that was an extension of their being handcuffed last game, or if this is something to take into and go, you know what? Let's just throw the paint all over the canvas and we're going to move it around and we're going to get as many people involved, as much fingering on the easel here as we can, and make this weird looking picture that only they can appreciate and no one else can really predict.
All right, 2 weeks, 1 win, 1 loss. I would say 95% of neutral observers assumed that would be the case for West Virginia after 2 weeks. But I think it's also safe to assume that maybe not in the manner they expected. How much has your opinion changed about this team after 2 weeks?
Just concerned about what happened offensively in the first game and then defensively in the second game. That's just two things I can't get by. I didn't think their defense was terrible in the first game. Um, I don't think it was quite as close as maybe some of the attempted acquittals tried to make it to be, but I didn't think it was terrible in the first game. Not gonna say that tonight, and it's just concerning because Albany went to certain things. This is a team that has one of the best FCS running backs and does not have one of the best FCS quarterbacks or receiving games. and just kind of said, you know what, screw it, spread them out. We're going to run pass plays and we're going to get one-on-ones. We're going to get into space, and they did. That concerns me because you're going to find better offenses, better offensive coordinators, better quarterbacks up and down the board. And then offensively, last game, I just don't like the fact that everything got unplugged because the quarterback got the yips on the snaps early in the game. That's not great. I don't think like there was no listen. That's going to happen, but they went away from it really fast, and they never had anything else baked into their game plan to supplement for what they lost. And by the time they got it back, it was too late. Like also when it got to be 20-6, it felt like that game was over. That was again just like from the offense you saw tonight. How can a 14-point deficit be insurmountable? But I think like when you went to halftime in that game, you're thinking, well, that's probably it because the offense had no punch. So probably pretty even, Chris. Like just not impressed by both sides in both games, which you figure you probably feel better about that after an FCS game, or you wouldn't feel so defeated after, playing at home in an opener. That's kind of where you're at right now, though.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm a little lower on the team than maybe I was 2 weeks ago for the exact reasons you said. Like, I just think the secondary was already a concern of mine in the preseason, and now it's alarmingly bad.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know how much can change. We said it before this game even started. We said it earlier. Like, how much is going to change from this game, from an FCS game, to make it better? There really was no way to make it anybody feel better about the team because it was, hey, you beat the heck out of Albany. You're supposed to. Done and done. End of story. Move on. But it could get worse. And I think it got worse tonight because of the secondary thing, because of a record setting in a bad way performance by the secondary against an FCS opponent. So um, a little more concerned about this team after 2 weeks than maybe I was in the preseason, but for similar reasons. I'm with you on the man, this is the whole offense is just off because Green got too excited. Like again, Neil Brown talked about it again tonight after the Albany game. It's just like he just got too revved up for that game. And that was the end of the explanation, more or less. And it's like, man, can't be that easily off track, like you were talking about there.
I would have said the same question at Pitt, Chris. Like, if people are looking at Pitt and like, oh, haha, Pitt, bottom dweller of the ACC, they seem like they have a passing game. They've had a quarterback go or running back go over 130 in both games. They came back from 27-6 today at Cincinnati. So again, that's not world beaters, but it's not Albany either. I think people are going to be a little bit surprised, maybe attuned to a different Pitt than they expected once they roll up their sleeves and get to figure out who they are and what they've been the first 2 weeks of the season because they've answered some questions I think in the first two games, not emphatically, but the things you didn't know about them. It looks like they've probably crossed some things out or checked some boxes that people wanted to see or wanted to know about with them, which we'll know more soon, right?
Imagine we will. Let me ask you this. I'm trying to also listen here on the side to this one last thing. So last thing I want to ask you, because it was the question you ended the press conference with this evening, asking if Jordan Leslie was all right. And during that, Neil Brown says, yeah, he got busted open, stitches, had to give up the play calling. Went back and checked. The moment that he went out, West Virginia was up 21 to nothing. He went out, had to give up play calling. Immediately, they gave up a touchdown, gave up a touchdown the very next drive. And then he comes back in the second half, and Albany doesn't score again. So the whole time that Jordan Leslie is calling the defense, West Virginia pitches a shutout. Now, I'm not saying it was perfect, not by any means, but does that change your perception of what happened tonight at all?
No,
Okay. I don't know if
no.
it really does for me either. Like maybe that tiny, teeny bit, but yeah, like I said,
Did
because
those
it still
defensive
wasn't
plays look
perfect.
different? Did those
Yeah.
defensive plays look different? Were they blitzing? Were they playing like cover zero? Like it wasn't out of character. I imagine that Shadon Brown was just like, man, let me tread water and not mess this up. I'm pretty sure he didn't say, like, you know what, screw Leslie. I don't like what he's doing. I'm gonna do something different. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
Um, that's it's a good observation. I think that'll be something that people. I'm sure that nobody will go overboard with
Not at
that
all.
anecdote of yours.
Not
I
anecdote of
mean,
mine. That was Neil Brown who said it. Neil Brown said he had to give up play calling, not me. So, but yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
with you.
maybe
Look, you're right. He didn't just change all the play calls and completely go something different. Like it was a vanilla night all along. It was a vanilla night during those two drives. It was vanilla night the rest of the drives. So
You buy
yeah,
that?
yeah, I do. I mean,
Okay.
for the most part. Yeah.
I figured that was the explanation that was going to come out of this. Like, oh, we were just going to be very vanilla. But like, Chris, like, what happens if like Gavin Bartholomew gets like a tunnel screen or a tight end screen on the outside and just rolls up Jordan Leslie on Saturday? You got to have a plan B.
Well, time to turn to pit week, Mike. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm going to leave now, I think. I hate that trip. Traffic's going to be bad. Like they've already told us like traffic's bad because of the Pirates game, the construction. So leave a little earlier than expected. So I'm like Sunday, maybe we'll see.
Yeah,
Should be fun. 3:30,
that sounds
great time.
terrible. Are we gonna put up a Q&A for the pit game or for Monday morning?
Yeah, it's either that or a hot board, and I'm not doing the hot board.
No, we're not. Nope,
Not after a win, right?
not after a win.
Problem
But
solved.
just a quick heads up for those that are going to listen and going to watch. See this thing right over my right shoulder? Let me get it right here. One of these. We're going to be doing one of those on a giveaway with starting with Monday's podcast. So be sure to tune in, listen. If you're watching, it's right here. If you're listening, go to YouTube and watch it. We're going to be giving one of those away on Monday morning from the podcast.
If you're listening, it's a check for $500 from Chris.
Yeah, I got to be careful about that. Just an open, hey, whatever's right here. Somebody's going to green screen something crazy right here, and we're going to be in
Perfect.
trouble. Get a call from CBS about that one.
Plenty coming up the site. Chris will have his power rankings. He'll have the I don't know, place to change the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fun.
Unfortunately, week one, it wasn't worth doing because it never got above 20%, I don't think. And then today, I don't think it ever got below 10. So,
Yeah, and it definitely swung back in West Virginia's favor on the goal line stand. I'll have three things I think. We'll have some snap counts and then see what else we can dig out of the post game here. Not a lot to say from the locker room and the Mountaineers. A lot to talk about online on the board. Earsports.com. We will catch you there. Until then, I'm Mike Casaza.
and I'm Chris Anderson.
We will talk to you then.